Kyousuke fans, come here. We know there's a lot of you. It's not really a mystery when you pop on HLTV and, 10 out of the 20 threads that you see are always Kyousuke, Kyousuke, come, Kyousuke, sick game, and so on. And now we obviously have Falcons Kyousuke in the works, apparently joining Falcons. Originally speculated to be for Tussas, now maybe for Magisk. Who knows where he's actually going? But we have Austin coming on to talk about it a little bit. He said that he tends to have the unpopular opinions usually. What's the unpopular opinion in this case, Austin?
Well, I think that he's a great player, so we'll get that out of the way right away. But I don't know if I like him joining Falcons because this just seems like a power move for the sake of picking up another star player. Also, not to be that guy, but he also hasn't played against any tier 1 teams. So who's to say that he can just jump into the number 2 team in the world and just continue this performance? I don't buy it, especially since he wouldn't even be able to play the roles that he's dominating in. Like he plays the same roles NiKo does. So what? NiKo's going to give his roles? And then NiKo might suck in the other roles. This makes no sense. I don't get it.
Do you know what is great? It's so great to have Hally joining us on the podcast. Genuinely, it's just what a privilege. It's the Spirit PR spokesperson. Just all the talking points. You've hit them all straight away. And I've also hit them in a more serious way, I think. So I think Hally here has taken over from me as chief role cell because like this Kyousuke guy, he's pretty good, okay? He's pretty good. And Zonic, he's won a few trophies. And we're going to do the classic results-based thinking here of Zonic more majors than Hally. And Zonic thinks that 2 openers can lurk, and Hally doesn't, apparently. So we got a few good ones here. But I've seen a bit of pushback on the Spirit thing, because just to open with the Spirit thing of why haven't Spirit promoted him? And yes, they won the major, and Magisk was really important to the major, so why would you cut Magisk? And roles. But I think the key thing is roles, and also Falcons are probably overpaying for Kyousuke because they're Falcons. And if it's the money thing and if it's an org thing, sure, I can see why Spirit would do it. Money does matter in this industry. But that's the boring answer. And I think the more funny answer is just to pretend that Hally is this ultra role cell and would never play anyone out of position ever. So for the purpose of this podcast, that is what I'm going to do. Whereas Zonic, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's like, oh, Tessa's gone up 0.05 rating the last 2 months. I'm going to cut Magisk instead and just put Tessus in major scrolls. It's going to be fine. It'll be fine. And you know what? They've got so many good players. Maybe it will be fine. And everything you think about CS will just go completely out the window, which is my worst case scenario, to be honest, is every time. Like, this is what happened when Mavs came into G2 as well. And I'm just sat there looking at it. And I wrote the article saying, like, it's just complete nonsense. Like, what are they doing? Like, he's good, but how's he going to be able to do as an anchor? Blah, 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 blah. He's too active. He's too like jittery. He's going to move around. He's going to be pushing all the time. And he was just quite a good anchor at the end. And then I just had to look at myself in the mirror and be like, it's just CS2. It's just a firepower game. And I'm waiting for someone to tell me why it isn't. So that's what this pod is, I think. Just prove me wrong on that.
Harry, before we move on, I need you to explain the motherload part to, fans who might not have played The Sims, such as myself.
Well, motherload is the cheat code, right? So you're on The Sims, you've got a really nice house already because you played the game properly, but you just got a little bit bored that day, and you just Control-Shift-C, and you type in motherload, and you just have infinite money, and that's basically what Zonic did, signing for Falcons, right? So, and he's got that on shortcut. That's like, he's probably got a macro running that's just motherload. So every time you lose a game, motherload. Like, win a tournament even, motherload. That's fine. Just get money anyway. So this is
when you can type motherload and get a player like Kyousuke, though,
shit, clutching though, isn't he? So what's the point? But yeah, this is the famous donk pac-man shot that we see every single time I do an EVP article. Donk's on it. He's amazing at everything. Doesn't clutch that much because like he's either won you a 5v3 or he's dead. And he's a 5v3 more often than he's dead, obviously. So this is very similar, but it also just shows how good Kyousuke is compared to the level of opposition that he is playing. And that's the point Austin brought up at the start is it's a little bit like the Molodoi thing. I mean, he's playing better teams because Spirit Academy are top 30, whereas like Amicao are like 100th, right? So it's a less extreme version, but obviously he's going to a better team. He's going to the second best team in the world right now, supposedly. So it's how much can you take off this? Like, there's no formula that we can make that's just like, oh, if he's 130 against top 30 to top 50 teams, like how good is he going to be in tier 1? Like, there's no way of doing that. So that's where hopefully you guys can come in a bit more of the eye test and help me out a little bit, because I just see numbers and I think, oh, it's donk. That's donk. It's the same person as donk. Obviously on the eye test, he does play a little bit slower. And I don't know if that means that it's better that he plays with NiKo, or if it's even more weird to me that Spirit don't think they can find room for him out of position as a lurker on T side. And that's my kind of opening question about this, is why couldn't he lurk for Spirit, do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's anything stopping him from switching and learning how to do roles like that. I'm not necessarily a role cell either. I think any good player can do anything in the game. They all have an understanding of how to do it. I'm just more concerned about the level jump, because it's like, yes, you can farm noobs basically, but when you're playing against the top teams, things are very different. I mean, I brought up this example on my own show, but it's like you have Grim, who was farming in tier 2 NA, which I know is completely different, but the second that he went to Liquid and they switched his roles, he was nothing special. He was actually way worse than anybody expected him to be. So it's like, I feel very similarly about this, because it's like when Donk got promoted, he got all of the roles that he wanted. He got all the roles that he was comfortable in. And of course, he's Donk and he is an exception to the rule. But I feel like now we have a lot of hype around this Kyousuke kid because, oh, well, Donk also came from Spirit Academy and he had very similar numbers. But you're going to do something completely different with him because you're not bringing him through the academy to the main roster. You don't have people who are planning around him. You just have people that go, really good player, put him on the team, don't think twice. And I don't know. The eye test is great. I'm sure he's going to be a fantastic player, probably top 20. But is it the right move? I'm not so sure.
Here's the thing, though. When Grim was on Liquid, he had Stewie clearly bringing him down. There's a lot of interviews back then. So are you suggesting that NiKo's going to be the guy to bring Kyousuke down this time around?
I never know. I mean, tensions are going to be high in that team, especially if they're not winning.
That's the difference, right? Is the Kyousuke is coming into a team like Donk had those 6 months at the end of 2023, right, where he played like one tier 1 LAN and obviously got the MVP there as well. But he had that ramp up. Like, there was hype about Donk, but not to the level of the forum threads we see about Kyousuke. Like, Donk was entering Spirit, and it was Spirit that were breaking into the top 20 and top 10 and progressing over time. And there was none of that outside pressure to the level that Kyousuke is going to have if he does move to Falcons or even another like tier 1 team, which it seems to be what's happening. But he has played a little bit more than Donk against good teams. So this is Donk in the academy before he jumped to the main team. And I forgot to put the map numbers here, which are quite important. But basically, Kyousuke has played more than Donk against these teams, and he also is performing slightly better. So it's limited sample because of course it is. Like, this kid is a kid, but compared to all the other like 18-year-old openers in our scene, like there's a reason the hype is there, right? Everyone can see big number good. And I think that's kind of the way it is. And then also he's been able to go to these like Russian lands, which was the last slide, wrong order, obviously. And he's been able to go to these lands and just drop 150s on everyone. So it is, there's pub stomping, and then there's pub stomping is basically what I'm trying to get at, is that if you're able to do numbers like this consistently, like, they're not bums. These are teams who can come to the MRQ and kind of shit all over Gamer Legion, and that's fine. And this is his land stats, of course. And then, because they're not complete bums. Like, I think the top 30 to top 50 in Europe is teams that can trouble a lot of teams online. And I think when you look at his opponent list on HLTV, it's like, like this Fnatic, he's like 105 against them. And then basically every single other team that he plays against, he's like 130. So I think it's just trying to illustrate a little bit that there's the scouting by rating, and then there's like this is a completely different level to even the best prospects we had like a year ago. It is absolutely bonkers what he's doing, and it does not take a genius to spot that at all.
I think it's also when you have a player who's very clearly excelling like this, it's similar to what Donk was doing before he got the promotion, because, I mean, you can only really play against the opponents that your team is getting. And when Donk was still in the academy, he was putting up pretty similar numbers against those kind of teams online. Yes, obviously it's different when you actually make that jump up, but I think the one thing with Spirit Academy is that they've really shown that they know how to develop a lot of these players for that jump, because when you take a look through that team's history, so Satvik has been the man behind that machine for a long time. He's their coach. He's helped run the academy program. But when you look at the players who've come through that as a program, you have, yes, obviously you have Zontix, you have Donk, but then when you go through, you also have like Art Frost, you have Magnojez, you have Siren, you have a lot of these players who have made the jump up to tier 1, who are around there for a long enough time and who are actually still in a lot of these, top 20, top 30 lineups, some who actually like were in top teams for much longer. And it shows that there is actually like a proven method and a proven pipeline for these players to jump into the top and still play relatively well. Now, obviously, it is a question whether Kyousuke can actually jump up and put the same kind of numbers that he has been, that Donk has been. But to your point, Harry, and something that you were talking about before the show as well, is that his playstyle isn't exactly like Donk's either. He is still aggressive, but he's closer to what, like a NiKo would be than a Donk. He's more methodical. He's a little bit slower. He does take those duels slower. So when it comes to that, when you have a little bit of a slower playstyle, I feel like it does give you the opportunity to convert that kind of skill set a little better than Donk, where you kind of have to instantly bang out heads. You have to have the impact immediately.
Mm-hmm. I think the crazy thing with Donk was he actually got better. And that was, and it's also so, like, looking back, it's kind of obvious why he did, because everyone's now copying him, right? In a way that they weren't in 2023 right at the start of CS2. And I think he's kind of changed the game in a way Kyousuke isn't really changing the game. Like, I saw Jane talk about this thing where, like, before a pillar, if you spam AD loads of times and then peak, you go like a tiny bit quicker. And he's like, oh, this is a Kyousuke thing. It's like, okay, sure. But like, that's like one bit of micro. Like, it's not Donk level impact on the scene. That's not what we're expecting. We're more expecting like because I think it's a more natural transition for him to drop in rating. Like, I think Donk was so different to what other people were doing and so special that it kind of made it easier for him to transition, because it was a shock to everyone. Like, okay, when you play against Kyousuke, it's like you're playing as the younger NiKo who doesn't have 12 years of insane experience. Like, the talent is there, like the eye test mechanics are there, but we know that the experience is what makes NiKo so good at what he does, right? So it's just that difference. But when you look at the stats, it's always Donk. It's always Donk. He just mounts 1-to-1 on with Donk. And I don't know if this is it's just the stats we have, basically, is that it doesn't quite see that he's not as aggressive as Donk. Whereas on an eye test, it's a bit more obvious that he is jiggle peeking a little bit. Like, not quite like prime 2021 Axel jiggle peeking, but he is, like, he's clearing angles, like it's free frag, pre-fire, more than Donk swinging and using movement to catch people off. And I think the next point we should get to is really how this is going to work in Falcons, because Kyousuke exists on the odd charts fine, actually, for this one. So Kyousuke is very similar to Donk, who is very similar to NiKo, who was very similar to Mavs. And it's whether you think Kyousuke can do what Mavs did in G2, or if he's too similar to NiKo. Because in my head, it's more like Mavs was a mini Donk and Kyousuke is a mini NiKo. And I just felt like NiKo and Mavs work together as a partnership because they are such different players. And I'm not going to say I've seen loads and loads of Kyousuke, but I'm a little bit worried that that dynamic is not going to be as easy as NiKo and Mavs was on paper to make work. But what do you guys think?
I mean, this is exactly what I was saying. Like, I am worried about him going to Falcons just because, like, that's who I compare him to as well. I compare him more to someone like NiKo. He has very similar roles. He plays a very similar playstyle. He's more slow. It's not as methodical, like with years of experience, but it's still very similar. And I just don't know how you're going to take two people who play very similar and put them in the same team. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm just saying that I don't know if you can do that and still get the same numbers out of Kyousuke. I don't expect that it's going to be a very smooth transition, but I'd love to be proven wrong. Like, I want to see another person that's competing for top player in the world.
When you see a player like Kyousuke play, how do you feel like the actual integration into a team like this will go, Austin? Like, what do you think the general transition will be like when he joins a team that has, you know, aspirations of winning immediately?
I don't know. It just depends on if they're going to let him keep his roles. Like, maybe, again, you know, because you have the list of all of their similar spots. I mean, if they let him have the roles that he already has that don't conflict, and then maybe they give him some of NiKo's, like, maybe then the transition's a little bit more like smooth. They already know what he's good at. They don't have to worry too much about like teaching him stuff. But if it's going to be like, okay, no, we're going to keep NiKo here and you're going to have to learn new spots, it could be like, you know, they're going to have to tough out some events where he's very uncomfortable. And I don't know, probably a lot of work put in on the team.
It's also the thing that happened to Malbs maybe this year, which is you can play rotate spots against tier 2 teams that are still very good and know how you play roughly. But stepping up to tier 1 in those rotate spots, like, that's even more difficult. Like, now with hindsight, you can look at Malbs and be like he was maybe a better anchor than he is a rotator at the moment, because there's so much going on in the macro if you're a rotator against these top 10 teams. Like, there's so much going on mentally that obviously NiKo is the best in the world at. Whereas the kind of just shoot hard thing, like, that actually is probably better for an anchor than a rotator once you get to the absolute top of the scene. Though I do think Kyousuke has that mental in a way that I think Malbs probably couldn't develop in NA. Like, it's just a skill that he's learning now and is getting better at now. But I do think it's going to be a real challenge. And the other thing we haven't really talked about much is the third player in this Falcons team, according to the board, it was Dusty DK, right? The report is Tessus. And Tessus is an entry. Like, he is a stereotypical old school entry. Like, he's in a lot more clutches in Falcons these days because he plays with NiKo and everything like that. And he's always been kind of the aggressive lurker type modern entry fragger who starts in the extremity and is like a semi lurker a lot of the time. But realistically, he is someone who is aggressive and wants to take gunfights. He's different. And even Magisk is like that. I would probably maintain that Falcons have not had an actual passive, like, true natural anchor lurker player. Because I think Magisk at his best is like the middle rifler. And you have, I mean, obviously these are obvious examples. Zipic's one side of him, Dupree the other side. And he can be the flex player like Twist was in FaZe and everything like that. And I think Tess is probably the same. And I think Kyousuke and NiKo probably want to be the most aggressive on the team. So there's just a massive gap of someone who's just able to slow around down and be like, no, we don't want to do this. And I think that's a huge challenge for Zonic. And is he going to be able to solve it without just transfer market again, without a little motherload again? And that's where I doubt this move, just like you guys, I think.
Austin, as someone who is still playing in semi-pro, someone who's seen a lot of players adapt to roles, how do you actually feel like that'll go in terms of him coming in and being able to, you know, have a voice in any of this?
I mean, he's a younger player and he probably respects a lot of these guys that he's going to be playing around. So it could go really well, or it could be that, like, when he learns these roles, let's think about it from my perspective. Like, when I joined in my first new team and I had to get new roles, I was very uncomfortable. I mean, this is just me and I can't speak for him, but I was very uncomfortable and I felt like embarrassed to ask for help. And I felt like, you know, it was just a tough time to learn a bunch of new things. So I don't know. Again, it just comes down to, like, if they're going to be able to help him, if he adapts quickly, if he's comfortable with the roles that he's given. I feel like I keep saying the same points, but that's just because it's like, that's really the main concern with him joining this team. And also, I do agree with you as well. Like, you're moving Tessus a little bit, and it seems like it's only a matter of time before they just grab another player, and then who are you going to pick up? Are we looking to get Malbs then? Because then it really doesn't make any sense, like, with the state of how Falcons is making these moves right now.
I mean, I think it's got to be Jimmy, right? I mean, we could get to it later. We can play Infinite Moneyball and see what you would try and do to make it work. We can save that slide for later. But one point I do want to raise is that he does play slightly different positions to NiKo. Like if we go on the next slide quickly, it's actually donk that he has the most overlap with, and there's a few like weird things that NiKo does which is a bit different. Like even on Ancient, like he was a B anchor and he was very good at B anchoring last year with G2. Anubis, NiKo always used to play mid, Kyousuke plays E-box. Dust 2, Kyousuke plays mid, NiKo plays CT. Inferno, NiKo's always been a banana player. Kyousuke has done a bit of both, I'm pretty sure. Like I checked this on Skybox Edge a few weeks ago. If it's all changed, it's not my fault. But Inferno, he plays A. So Mirage, he plays short, NiKo plays con. And like obviously nuke outside, whatever. I'm sure you can transition Kyousuke to door. And then even on train, they can just play outside together and stuff like that. So I look at this and I actually think I can see why on CT side especially, Falcons have probably looked at this and gone, okay, they play very similar styles, but the exact positions are maybe easier to make work than you would assume from the outside. Like the actual micro positions here are slightly easier than I assumed. Like I assumed I was going to check this, get a banging graphic, 7 out of 7 overlap, and just be like, look how stupid they are. But I think this probably does help justify it. And it then becomes a question of, it doesn't really matter if you've got people in their correct positions if the styles don't fit together. And then it becomes something like that, rather than the actual overlap itself that we're talking about.
So in this case, the overlap would be mostly with Tessas. Is that right?
I think so. It's like the secondary rotate spots a lot of the time. And then if Tessas is anchoring, then it's kind of all fine. And I think there's a few kickstand spots in here as well, because he is a little bit mixed. And we know RGLs don't love full-time anchoring, but if NiKo's calling a lot of the time on CT sides, it's fine. Kickstand's pretty good at fragging on CT side especially, I think. So I think it's actually more of a T side concern for me, because I think NiKo showed with Mavs that he's very good at micromanaging players who are new to tier 1 and getting quite a lot out of them and calling aggressive plays where Mavs can take part in things. I think CT side Kyousuke will have a level of comfort and a few of his gimmicks and things from these spots that he doesn't have to lose all of them, because Mavs lost all of his spots basically. Like it's a different transition. So I'm actually more worried about T side, because I think NiKo isn't going to give up his T side spots. It would be silly to. They're all his iconic ones. Like he did sometimes, like I think on Mirage even now, like it's, he does kind of a lurk a lot. Like he's in Palace a lot. But if he wants to go underpass, he gets to go underpass. Like it's not like Kyousuke can be the underpass guy all the time. So it's more like which of them is going to be starting in these extremity positions, because you don't want to lose NiKo from the map control early, I don't think. And it's, can Kyousuke adapt to that? And I don't know if I've really seen anything in him, which means that could be fine. And with good coaching and good in-game leading and everything, because you do want a kind of dose of aggression everywhere as well. And I'm sure you've had this in your teams, Austin, of two aggressive players that want to play the same roles. And is it sometimes better to have two really good aggressive players, one slightly uncomfortable, than a team of support players who just like, oh yeah, I'm very happy doing this, and then they're not active enough sometimes. So I think there is a balance here, and I don't know if you want to expand on that exactly.
So at least in my opinion, having two aggressive players with one of them like being kind of in weird spots from what they're used to, it actually doesn't work very well. But also I've played on NA teams, so you can never find a balance, right? Because people are like, oh, I'm just going to peak this round because I haven't got to peak in the last 5 rounds. It's like, and it's more of like an ego thing. In this instance, I feel like there is definitely probably a better chance that they can find that balance. But I think my main concern here is just having to teach Kyousuke, who is again not playing against the tier 1 teams right now. And when you just like look and just sift through a couple of demos of the team and not actually of him, you can kind of see that the Spirit Academy team is not very good at setting him up. So I think Kyousuke is kind of just skill diffing everybody that he's playing. So he might just have a rough time adapting, because like, oh, the difference when you're peaking whoever's on these teams, I don't even know any of the names, but if he's peaking somebody on like his 500 roster versus peaking Zywoo, like he's gonna lose, and he has to learn how to like call around himself and how to get the team to help him. And like, I feel like there's a lot more that's going to go into that. Plus, if he's already like maybe changing T-side roles a little bit, he doesn't even know what he needs to do. Again, I'm not saying that he's not going to be able to adapt, but I think that in the initial like first few months could be really rough for him.
Especially like language barrier as well, which we've not really touched on, is I can't imagine it's easy to be Zonic trying to understand, right, of what type of personality he has. Like he's in the academy system, and we know coaches like Ash have always talked a lot about just loves picking up players from academies because they're professional from the age of 14 or something. And we know Kyousuke will have a little bit of that, but it's still going to be very hard for them to get an accurate picture of what this guy actually is like as a person, because the only people you can talk to about it are people who work for Spirit Academy and want more money from you. So there's no like previous coaches. You can't talk to like one of the 7 advanced teams he played for when he was on the come up, right? There's none of that. They only got Spirit Academy to talk to and people he's played pugs with and stuff. So I think there is a huge question mark on this of you are just going off his mechanics and his ability, and all of the intangibles that we know are really important are just huge question marks for me at this point.
If we do take what we've been told that's face value, at least by Spirit, so obviously I've talked to Salthic in a feature that has been delayed multiple times due to me rewriting it, but he talked at length about basically how their academy program's designed, what he's done with it, and also how Kyousuke's come through that. And I was asking him about how, you know, Donk's rise compares to Kyousuke's, and something that he said was that the way that Donk absorbed knowledge, the way he took information and just immediately understood it and adapted it, he'd only ever seen that once before, and that was with Siren. And then the next player to have done that is Kyousuke. Now, if we take that at face value and we have Kyousuke come into this Falcons team and he's able to actually absorb information the same way as Donk and able to understand, you know, how he needs to adapt and be able to make those changes immediately, then I mean, based on what you're talking about now, Harry, that adapting process will actually should be easier than for a lot of these players who make this jump up. Don't you think, Austin?
In English? You think in English?
English is
he's
going to be the hard
thinking
one,
in Russian still, right?
That's the thing.
You'd
is
expect.
But you always have players who, when they transition, you can think in Russian. It's the fact is that he still plays Face It. There's a point where, like, at least when it comes to that raw ability in game, there's obviously going to be a lot of very small bits of information that you won't be able to communicate. But I think when you have players with the experience of like NiKo with m0NESY now, when you have this kind of lineup, if Kyousuke can still have, 95%, 90% of the impact he does and get at least the immediate information communicated, then the rest of that communication barrier, he'll have months to, figure out, as long as Zonic doesn't decide to replace him in 6 months for some reason.
Oh, Jimmy's available now. See ya.
What do you think, Austin?
It's hard to say. Like you had said originally, though, we have really nothing to go off of other than what Softish is saying. So, like, I don't know how much I put stock into that, because it's like, if he also said Siren did that, and where is Siren now? Like, I haven't seen him play in quite some time. So I mean, if he is actually learning,
he's on Perry Vision, isn't he? Something
is
like
he?
That? No, Bet Boom.
Well, either way, I'm not 100% convinced, because it's a completely different thing when you're giving somebody the best roles and you're giving somebody, like, he's very comfortable in aiming, and then, yeah, of course he's learning everything right away because it's something that he's good at. But if you have to give him roles that he's not happy with, and these are T-side roles, to be clear, because like you're saying, CT side shouldn't overlap that much, or at least in like the ancient case, he can play mid with NiKo. It just seems more like I just have to see it to believe it. Not to be like, I want to be like full send, like he's going to be the best, but I just want to see it first. Like, give him a couple of events, and if he's doing well, then I think it's good.
Mm-hmm. But just to play devil's advocate, do you think there's a world where the jump is so different from tier 2 to tier 1 that in a weird way it might be nice for him to have 7 new spots on T side and to learn from literally ground zero how to play in tier 1 as a lurker? rather than maybe using some of the moves that he's used to in tier 2, where it is about skill depth often. Like maybe he's not doing the perfect move, but he's so good that he just wins the fight.
Well,
Whereas
I mean, he did.
if he's doing all these new roles, maybe that'll actually help. I don't know.
He did just give that interview recently where he said he was disappointed, or somebody said that he was disappointed that the final was so easy.
Yeah, Softic said it.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe he is gonna be like, oh, I want to learn. I need a challenge in my life again. I mean, and if that's the case, then everybody should be afraid, because if there's somebody that's actually ready to make that jump the first time they're in tier 1 and have to, well, learn everything new, this is great, then we might be in trouble. But we'll just have to see how he does when he's playing against these names in the server, Robs and Donk himself, and see if he can continue this form.
I think one thing people are also not going to consider or not really factor in as quite as much is that when Donk made this transition, CS2 is still relatively new. Players were all still adapting to the game. There was this whole period where the Donk slide came in. There's all this, different movement. There is different mechanics. There's grenading smokes. There's a lot of different changes that players all had to adapt to at once. And when you have a player like Donk coming in who can thrive in that chaos at the same time, and who's clearly very skilled and can adapt, that makes a lot of difference. But now when you have these players who've now played this game for well over a year and a half, 2 years, and you have this, there's not as big of a information gap or as big of a adapting period for a lot of these players who've now played at the top for a long time. And you have someone coming in like Kyousuke and you don't have that kind of, uncertainty period. Is it going to be harder? Is it going to be the same as Donk? What do you think?
I don't know. When Donk was first playing in CS2, a lot of pros were pouting because they didn't like the game. I mean, Simple even he just disappeared for the last 2 years because he doesn't like CS2. So I remember watching those early events, and it was like FaZe and Complexity in the final, just something random compared to what we were seeing at the end of Go. So I feel like Donk just being able to hop in and be ready to be on top was something that pros weren't ready for. But obviously now things are completely different because people have analyzed Donk, and probably every keyboard input Donk does, they're trying to mimic. So it's it's very different. The average level of a pro, in tier 1, their mechanics level is just so much higher than it was at the beginning of CS2 because it has to be on top. I just feel like in general, people are going to be more prepared for these really flashy aim heavy players, and it shouldn't be such an issue. Also, again, just from the brief review that I did of Spirit Academy, he doesn't get flashed that much. There's a lot of misplays that happen in tier 2, and I feel like he's just thriving because, again, he's very good with his aim. But when you're playing against let's say even Astralis recently, who looked decent at Astana, you're probably going to have to deal with a lot more team play than you're used to, and I'm not so sure. I'm not, again, I feel like I keep saying the same thing. I'm just not sure yet.
But say, just quickly, say you are Hally or whoever's making decisions at Spirit. What would you do in that situation? Are you saying you need to loan him out to someone? Give him Bet Boom for 6 months or something at the end of this year? Give him just a team that probably will get to a few big events. Just something like that. Maybe something like Mouse did with Shui, right? With Gamer Legion, of just a little bit of a low pressure environment. Do you think that would actually benefit his career to do something like that?
It depends. I mean, it depends. What if that was the case, then why wouldn't they just promote him to the main roster? Because you can immediately get experience in a system that you're already somewhat familiar with, and you know that you'll get what you want if you do that. Wouldn't that make more sense? It's instead of loaning him out to another team. But I mean,
you don't think he's ready, right?
Yeah, I agree with
the
you.
hypothetical is he's never played Tier 1 LAN before. Spirit are the 3rd best team in the world, or maybe 2nd. And it's a risk to move so much of the system around to replace one of Zontics or Magics. So the logic would be, okay, let him play his roles in a Tier 1.5 team that can go to the events that Spirit Academy obviously can't go to, and just see how he does. Because I'm surprised they haven't consider that as an option, because I think the rest of Spirit Academy, Na'Vi Junior, they have 3 or 4 players that's got a lot of hype around them individually. After Spirit Academy, there's Kyousuke, and then the rest of them, you don't hear their names at all. There's no real buzz around any of them. The in-game leader only joined quite recently even, I think. So there's not the level of buzz. It is just Kyousuke. So I thought at the start of this year, I kind of expected him to go to, I don't know, one of those kind of Russian-speaking teams. And I think that maybe would have done him some good in a way, like even like Parry Vision. If he's just on Parry Vision instead of Nohte or something, like, and he's just in a slightly better team, has a slightly more experienced in-game leader. And I know Sotfik is very good at developing talent and they want him in the pipeline. But I do look at it sometimes and I think, okay, generational talents can make that step up. Like Zywoo, minute one, he's playing tier 1 lands as the star player and it's fine. Donk obviously had the little bit of ramp up time, but pretty much the same thing. And it's whether you'd put Kyousuke in that bucket or the bucket of like a normal player who needs a little bit more time. And I'm not 100% sure which bucket he would go in at this time.
You know, actually, that makes a lot more sense now that you've explained it. Because if he did go to a team like Paravision and he was still nuts, then it would be way more clear where he belongs. You know, like, oh, he could be the next Donk instead of like maybe the next NiKo. But again, if you wanted to all in, which I don't, maybe Spirit don't want to. If you wanted to all in, you would just immediately promote him and just see how it goes. Trial by fire.
Mm-hmm. To be clear, that is what I would do. That's exactly what I would do.
That's what I would do too if I was Spirit, because, well, Spirit have their own issues right now, don't they?
I mean, Harry, on your point, and before I get into a couple of HLTV forum threads, as we like to do here, there can't be any buzz around the other Spirit Academy players because buzz is on OG.
Oh, you're so back, honestly.
I'm so back. And, you
Terrible.
know, there's a great HLTV thread that gives a theory as to why Kyousuke didn't actually go to Spirit. It says, Kyousuke, bitter of donk, by Donk Enjoyer, with an American flag, that says, bro really chose Falcons instead of Spirit, since he is too jealous to play with Donk, who has gotten all the women, accolades, and riches. No respect for Kyousuke anymore until he owns up to this, or changes his transfer back to Spirit. What are your thoughts, Harry?
See, we saw a tweet pre-show, and I'm not sure it's true at all, but I think it's relevant to the narrative here. Donk might got a girlfriend, guys. And we talked about this last week. It's so over. And Spirit is selling him now? Like if Donk's like writing love hearts on like female players' Steam comments, like this guy, he's taking his eye off the ball, guys. Like Zai always cleared him. And Donk is like 3 months later, he's finished. He's completely finished. And then Kyousuke is going to be in Falcons, no buyback clause. No girlfriend. Have like 1.2 million. No girlfriend, pracking 18 hours a day like Donk was last year. And then Spirit is just completely washed. It's just completely over. And that is a situation that this forum user has not seen. And this is more important. And Kyousuke is going to get his revenge. I'm telling you. It happened with Modesty. It's going to happen again.
Austin, what are your thoughts?
I have seen many of good players taken away by girlfriends before. I won't lie. Many of teammates of mine never seen again. But I don't know. Zywoo has a girlfriend, right? I'm pretty sure. So like I don't actually think it would I don't think it would change that much, but it is something that it could be worth mentioning. I mean, Modesty had some issues with like the breakup and everything, and I don't know, man.
Yes, it should be a rule, a Sotfik rule. No girlfriends until you're 25 and you've won 2 majors. Just do it. Just do it. It'll be fine.
Well, it's funny because Sotfik actually mentioned that there's a meme apparently in, I don't know if it's the Russian scene or what, but he said there's a meme that appeared out of nowhere and he thinks he could develop in the future. Jame has Jame time while I will have played it the Sotfik way. Now Donk and Kyousuke are constantly saying that they've played it the Sotfik way. Maybe I will have so many players that I've taught how to play and they'll be saying that they've played the Sotfik way, and this way I'll become a celebrity, I'll have my own merch. That's all jokes. And maybe playing it the Sotfik way is actually just not having a girlfriend until you're over 25.
I was gonna say, isn't it just like a basement in Serbia and they're just all locked in there until they get like 18,000 bot kills and 1,400 elo and face it? Like they're just... Like they're promoting like another 4 teams or something. You seen this? They're gonna have like an under 12 team. Like I swear the game's not even legal to play when you're 12, and they're gonna have like under 12 kids like top 50 in the world in 5 years. So Sotfik he's on some wild shit. That's all I can say about that.
I have one more thread for you though, Harry. It's It says why Kyousuke chose Falcons by a world flag, very destroy guy who loves NiKo. And it begins, aside from the bag, brackets Zonic, the bag, money, brackets money, and the bag, brackets Monacy plus NiKo. He started playing later, 2018 to 2019, during Astralis dominance era. His reason for choosing Spirit Academy was coach. He viewed Sotpik as best academy coach. When asked about what is important to him when considering a team to join, he answered, coach and teammates in that order. Kyousuke has been successfully convinced by the HLTV forums that Hally is trash and Zonic is greater than Hally. Next is his relationship with his mom. She supposedly wants to make she supposedly wants to move to Belgrade with him to be close to him if he makes a move for CS, and Falcons Baggington can pay for that along with all their first-class flights. He said he could change roles and he doesn't need to be entry only. When asked what role he could be, he said second carry. There's a chance he was offered a different role at Spirit and declined. What's the verdict?
I
So you
feel
think
like
just private tickets?
some of that was like I feel like some of that was valid, but obviously the one about his mom is just outrageous. I mean it kind of makes sense. Like if he the timeline does check out if you think Sonic's a good player, a good coach. I mean I could kind of see it, but most of that is memes for sure.
You're saying that's a joke? There's no way, right? That's completely serious. But I can see it. I can see it because Kyousuke, do you remember that they do the social media videos where it's like pick a player and it's say when you hear a player better than NiKo, I think it was, and he just never said. It's just NiKo. It's just a NiKo fan. He's literally just a guy who flicked on the stream in 2018, saw some 1Ds and was like, I'm going to play with that guy in 7 years. And he actually is. And you can't, he's not watching Donk in 2018. You got to forgive him for this. There's aura to NiKo that Donk he's only had like a few years of it. So, I mean, the forums are shining. I see this.
We also have a Render, who is a Latvian flag and a fan of HLTV. So you know that they probably are watching this podcast at some point. And it just says, the thread title is, of course, Kyousuke, because there's not enough threads titled Kyousuke.
Always
and
click.
the first line of the thread is also just Kyousuke, followed by, I don't understand why there's so much attention paid to a level T2 player, ? Like he won a Vita, ? Followed by a picture of Kyousuke, followed by, and I also have a question. The guy smokes. Why don't his parents look after him? And he hasn't turned 21 yet, or is it normal to smoke at the age of 10 to 20 in your country? The thread has 20 upvotes, followed by the first comment that says Kyousuke that has 186 upvotes.
You just know it's coming as well. That is one of my favorite Reddit memes. It's not even self-conscious as a meme. It's like a picture of a player smoking. It's like, pro smoke? And that's just like every event, someone just sees a player smoking air and it's just like, players smoke? It's like, yeah, players smoke. Thanks. And Kyousuke, he speaks to a Russian man. Of course he smokes. That's the game.
It's not even a picture of him smoking. It's a picture of him looking sad after they won the LAN.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, we don't put that on HLTV, do we? We don't send Bircho to the smokers area, get the paparazzi on it. Like we've done like one paparazzi shooting like ever, and it was when Monacy got out the taxi when he had the visa issues, and it was one of my favorite days at an event. And it's just we're all just standing there with our phones, and Birch just like doing the proper like crouch down, like photography, and it's just that's what we need. That's what we need for Reddit. For Reddit, we should make him paparazzi.
His camera takes good photos, I will say.
His camera does take good photos. And his site takes good photos as well. It's just credit to HLTV. Always.
Okay, Harry, let's get back on track. We've talked enough about the forums. Some fantastic threads, though, I will say.
It's Kyousuke. You have to linger a bit.
Naturally, of course. But, your only remaining slide is really where else could he have gone? So walk us through some of these options. Austin, if you have any thoughts about these lineups that Harry's crafted, just feel free to jump in as well.
Mm-hmm. So the number one thing I noticed when I was like, why is he going Falcons? He should try and get his own role somewhere. And then I look at like the top teams, I'm like, probably going to be quite hard to get his roles. Like in a lot of these teams have spent a lot of money or a lot of time developing these star openers because it's CS2 and you want your best player to be an aggressive rifler, probably, a lot of time. So Liquid have spent loads of money on nerds. Mouse have put so much stock into Xerxes, I suppose, too important. And who knows, their money, whatever. Even G2, they're investing a lot in Mavs and everything they all say is about Mavs all the time. And they think that's the future. FaZe have just bought a Liege, even. Falcons have NiKo. And it's like a lot of even Vitality, they have Flamesy, and Vitality aren't going to change that right now. So you look at it and you're like, okay, maybe like VP or something, then he can stay Russian speaking, you replace his Flammers. But it's like, that team's rubbish. Like, why would he do that for? So I think one other thing in the Falcons conundrum is that I think he's probably going to end up being a lurker in most of these top teams. Like if you want to join a good team right now, you're either going to make someone like Mavs lurk again, and there's no guarantee that's a good team either, by the way. So I think he's probably just looked at it and gone, like, I can't negotiate for my roles in any of these teams. The one that would be really fun is the FaZe one. And I know that Simple is supposed to be a temporary thing, but just the idea of Carrigan trying to just stick Kyousuke in for a Liege and just see if that works instead. Like that just seems fun to me, to be honest. So maybe that's where we start, is which European team, Austin, would you have rather seen him in?
FaZe.
Or just FaZe?
Yeah, I mean, I just tweeted the other day, my dream FaZe roster right now is Carrigan, Rain, Simple, Malbs, and Kyousuke. Now, I know Malbs is a little bit of a question mark, but I'm thinking if we could just get the best of all worlds, maybe we put Kyousuke in the lurking spot, like you said, have Malbs entry. I think that would be such a strong team. You could also have Kyousuke entry, maybe Malbs lurk again. I think it would just... that team would have so much firepower. Kerrigan can IGL them. They would be able to play that like grimy CS. I know Kyousuke is good. He plays a lot of pugs. That would be a perfect team for him to just immediately go to. You have the CSGO best player in the world. Malbs is a very exciting player. Rain's a super solid anchor. It would just be the best case for FaZe. That's why it can't happen.
I think just stick Carrigan on G2 and it's better, honestly.
I don't want to...
Carrigan, Malbs, Kyousuke, Heavy Gods, and Bias. I think that's a better team with Saw coaching.
Yes, but I don't want to not be a FaZe fan anymore. I need Kerrigan and Rain to stay. Otherwise, the second that this FaZe roster is done, I think I'm done too. I can no longer watch Pro CS. I've been a FaZe fan since I've watched this game. I don't want to let them go. I can't do it.
That's the question though. Were you an Envy fan?
I actually, I got into CS when FaZe bought their team because I was a college kid. So when they bought their CS team, that's when I started watching, and then now I'm here. So
Envy was still around right before then, no? Didn't the Kerrigan Envy thing happen post-FaZe?
Oh, yeah. You mean that roster?
Yeah.
Yeah, when he went to the Envy team, I watched and was very disappointed, but I did cheer them on during that weird time, yes.
Just wonder what side of the breakup you were on.
And the Mouse
team. Carrigan or Rain?
Rain, always.
Always Rain.
It'll always be Rain.
That explains why you're keeping him in this team then, instead of just signing Jimmy or something.
I mean, he's the GOAT after all.
Of course. You got to have more GOATs. The word GOAT has so much meaning. So much meaning left. But no, what about you? Is there a team I've missed out on? Where are you doing? If you're Kyousuke's agent and you've got too much power because he's 18, where are you sending him?
I mean, here's the thing. You left it off, obviously, for a very obvious reason that Navi for Ime would have been the dream, but that's clearly not just going to happen because of obviously the Russian-Ukraine war. But in this case, I don't know. You know what, Harry? I think you really didn't consider that Kyousuke could just kick Electronic off VP and take over as IGL and run up become the new Electronic. Because hey, listen, if you have Kyousuke as the IGL, there's no way that they're going to finish every round at 10 seconds left. So if you think about it, it's really going to change up VP's playstyle the way it needs to.
Honestly, I could see this happening, but it is the other way around. It's they sign Kyousuke and then Flamus does the Brolan interview where he's like, I've always wanted to be an IGL. I've always thought I was smart enough. And I could just see it. And just Flamus' personality, I could just see it happening. Or they just bring Jame back. Jame IGL, Flamus Kyousuke Jame entry pack. How fun's that?
Here's the thing, though. Kyousuke said how much he values having a coach, and VP is just, like the carnival round of coaches. So
Bring
I don't know if he
Sophic.
would ever actually join that team.
Bring Sophic.
Yeah, and then swap him for Hally 3 months later, and then swap him for Soma another 3 months later. Exactly.
Just bring Finn back. That's done. But,
I mean, honestly, though, to actually seriously answer your question, I do like the idea of your G2 team with Kerrigan in-game leading. I think that would actually be ideal because it has enough players that are long-term prospects who actually will keep playing. Because here's the thing, Rain is having a second raindrop, as he said. Excellent tweet, by the way. But there is a point where Rain will probably step down. I don't want it to happen, but it will happen inevitably. And
He's gonna
Kerrigan
have-
also is getting up there. I think Kerrigan eventually will swap to coaching. I think honestly, this year, next year, after one of these majors, I think he will probably just retire. I think he's trying to go out on a high and get one of those last majors and then just, transition to coaching, step away, whatever. So if we want Kyousuke to have a chance to, develop under him and have that immediate opportunity, I think Kerrigan's style also really fits the kind of player that Kyousuke would be on this team. So I think that G2 lineup would be great. With FaZe, if you slot him into this team, I think the dynamic with Simple would be just very interesting to see. I actually think that could be cool just to see how Simple treats like the new generation of players when he's seeing them do like some of these kind of moves, because I think at this point he probably just has to respect it. He can't pull the whole like SDY kind of drag him down a little bit. I don't think that would happen as much after he's been away for the game for this long.
But do you think he'd be nicer to Kyousuke or a Liege?
Oh, that's a tough one. Apparently, I'm reliably told by Reddit that because it's a 9-year-old beef, it must still be going. So obviously he would be nicer to Kyousuke than Elige because Elige and Simple simply can't be friends.
Yep, exactly. But to the more serious, because it's a serious podcast, HLTV, there's police report pros all the time. When I look at this, I understood the Falcons thing way more.
Yes.
Because I look at it, and if I am Kyousuke, and for whatever reason Spirit is closed off, or you just see more potential in Falcons and Spirit won the bag, whatever reason it is that he's not in Spirit, I think Falcons is the only option really that I would go for if I was Kyousuke. It's the only slam dunk. Because, and I think this is the important thing, is you're in Falcons and you look at it and you're like, okay, that's a weird anchor to have. But Zonic's thinking that too. And Zonic is tapping up Bit and Jimmy in Steam messages every day for the next 6 months. And Tessus isn't going to be on this team in 2026. This team will be one of the most OP anchors in the world. Kyousuke, NiKo, Magisk, and probably Kickstart still. And in 2 years, NiKo will probably start in-game leading. And then Kyousuke will get all the NiKo's roles when NiKo's a bit worse at fragging. And you sign your 5-year deal. Magisk signed a however long year deal. And that duo is going to be insane. And it's going to be insane for basically forever until they're like 30 or get a girlfriend or something. And that's just it. Like it's the best career decision he could have made if Spirit are being this stubborn. And there are questions about it from Falcons' point of view of it being utterly insane to spend 1.2 million on a guy who's never turned up a LAN outside of like Moscow 18 against Norbert and his friends. Like that is something that's happening. Like that is an absurd amount of money. But we saw with Magisk that sometimes just spend the money. And if you're Falcons, why not spend the money? Like this is someone who, if he goes to a different team, he might not be donk, but he's so good that you probably don't want him to go to another team anyway. And you'd rather him adapt to tier 1 with you than someone else and then miss out on it because you were nervous. Like he is probably the generational talent of the last year. And that is numbers, but there's no one else that you'd rather have if you're Falcons GM. Scouting by rating is a bad principle, apart from when that rating is 1.35. Like he could be half the player and he'd still probably improve a Falcons team that's already so close to trophies. So I think it's easy to criticize them for obvious reasons, but if you had an infinite money glitch on Football Manager type video games, this is what you would do as well. And don't lie to me and say you would. You would put Kyousuke out of position and have him for 5 years next to Manasi. Because why wouldn't you? Honestly.
I didn't really think about that, but you're right. It will be like a long-term thing. I'm mostly thinking like the next 6 months. I don't think it's like a good move. I still think that even now, but you're right. Like for the next 5 years, having that core of 3 players where you just continuously get upgrades, it's gonna be overpowered. Like it is the move of all moves with the infinite money, like you say. And then, you know, you eventually get like Bit or Jimmy. And then you're right, NiKo will IGL. And then maybe they can get Donk at that point. Who knows?
The thing is that when you're planning for the future like this and you replace Magisk right now, it does make the most sense because Bit's not leaving immediately. Jimmy's not leaving immediately. The thing is, when we talked about this before, yes, Jimmy just signed a new deal at the start of the year. But I mean, Falcons, once again, you know, will just type motherload and buy him out again. But that's the thing. When you can't get these players in immediately and you actually have this team kind of on an upturn in results anyway, you get a chance to play out with these kind of mixed roles. And then by the time you actually roll around to needing an anchor, you have better options to pick from. Right now, they don't really have those options to pick from for Magisk anyway. So, I mean, they do, but again, they would have to spend a lot more money and Bit might not be leaving right now. So you wait a couple of months and then you actually might have that option to easily replace a player rather than, you know, let Magisk keep going with this 0.8 ratings while Manasi and NiKo try and farm.
Honestly, I'd still keep Magisk. I would still keep Magisk. I think
Why?
I think it's a little bit like Naf, and it's a little bit of a, he will uptick when the team is doing better. And I think the last 2 events he has been better. And Tessus in these roles is just weird. Like Magisk is an uncomfortable lurker, but it's different to Tessus being your main passive piece. I think this is where I will go full Rollcell and go full Hally. But I don't think firepower is your issue in that team. I think having someone who has that much experience and that much winning know-how, like we've all heard Tessus talk about getting nervous still, and he was the one who used to throw up before games in playoffs, right? And obviously he's done a lot of work with psychology and everything to overcome that. But I'm looking at this team and it's Manasi and NiKo who bonkers firepower, but do seem to have these weird mental moments in finals sometimes. Like that, one of them seems to have an off game quite a lot. And then you're adding in another firebrand in Kyousuke. I'd rather have Magisk as my anchor, even if he's a little bit worse individually than Tessus. Am I insane?
I want to agree with you, like, because it makes sense on paper, but when watching the finals and like doing the deep dive, because, you know, I do a lot of demo reviews still of like the top players, and Magisk just looks so clueless in a lot of these rounds. Like, yes, he's your experienced player. We can rely on him. But can you? Like in some of these rounds, he's quite literally looking the wrong way. Like he's dying to people that he's not looking at. Like he seems a little out of the meta. He's a little bit like rusty. It's what he looks like. He looks like he's rusty, not like he's playing for the second best team in the world right now. So I think Magisk is your player to replace 100%.
Yeah,
Another thing is Harry. I'm used to be a pretty big Magisk fan as well. Like I used to actually think he was an excellent anchor and he was the right player for a lot of these roles, especially when he first moved to this Falcons team. I was like, wow, I actually kind of hate this because I feel like he's going to be wasted on this team. And I mean, initially he was because of the way that initial team worked out with Boris and that whole fiasco. But now when you look at it, he's not that player anymore. He's not having the same impact. He's not having the same consistency. And you say that he's gotten a little better since this move happened, but really that's just because the team overall is elevated. Like your rating naturally is just going to go up a little bit as well. But when you watch, like Austin said, when you watch the actual game, there's still so many rounds where he's looking lost, where he's getting caught out. And I think when you have Tessus able to, you know, do at least most of that job, I still think you're going to be pretty okay. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Tessus still had some of these roles back in the day. Like if you go back 2-3 years ago, he's not like he's unfamiliar with these roles entirely.
Mm-hmm. He played some micro roles, but he also had Shush, right? So that's the paradigm in that team. And then Shush also wanted to be more aggressive at the time. So it is a similar situation. But yeah, I mean, I'm a Magisk fanboy. I was a role cell in 2018 that said, why is Glaive playing connector? Why isn't Magisk playing connector? And it's just like, just a complete fucking idiot, obviously. But I am a Magisk fanboy, and I will always be biased to Magisk. And it's also very nice of you to actually presume that I watch games instead of just looking at a spreadsheet just fiddling with the formulas until Manasi to the top, which is the actual truth, obviously. So, but yeah, I mean, Magisk, there's just something about it, man. There's just like I know what you mean, because it's like his movement looks clunky in a way that like it's not like Pasha level, but it just doesn't look like Prime at all. And I get that. Like, I am mostly making a point off intangibles, which is probably stupid. But we know Zonic's ruthless enough. Like, Zonic can cut Dupree. And if he's cutting Magisk, I think he's probably seen enough. And I am just nostalgic for a past that has gone. I'll take the L on this one.
Okay, I think that does a pretty good job wrapping up our Kyousuke discussion. I don't think there's anything we didn't go over other than, you know, how his integration into Spirit could have been. But in a future episode, I think Harry and I will definitely explore more about the Spirit side of things and how they're doing, especially if, Sana somehow they fumble the biggest, easiest opportunity to get a trophy in quite a while. Like, there's definitely a conversation to be had in that case. But overall, Austin, I wanted to give you the chance. Do you have any parting words or anything you want to leave us with about Kyousuke or about your own side of things, your own content, anything you wanna leave us with?
No, I just want to say thanks for having me, and everybody who's going to be mad at my opinions. I do think Kyousuke will be a top 5 player before like the next year. Just to be clear, I don't like this move initially. I'm not saying he's bad. Don't come for me. You'll come for me anyway. And that's it.
You just came on just so that the forum sidebar would just say Austin CS instead of Kyousuke.
It's not going to be the first time, and it won't be the last time.